Well, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Moen After Dark. I am Moen, joined by my compatriot and co-host Immaculate. I am alien-proof here to keep the commissioners from the Big Ten from reading my mind. How are you doing tonight, Immaculate?
Oh, good. We got our OC finally, so I guess that's a good thing, right?
Well, you said you didn't want Tommy Reese. Have you
Yeah.
changed your evaluation on that?
No, not that far. I was a little irritated with it, but not that irritated. I just wanted the other guy.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about some NIL stuff as well, and college football realignment, of course, which is our bread and butter, as we like to say. Let's say hello to some of the people who joined us.
Let's do it.
Timothy Green, guaranteed to be another fun-filled evening with talks of college football and ECT. There you go. Nathan Campbell, be back in a minute. Yep, we delayed it for a half hour to let Greg get his news out there. I wanted to make sure that he got his news out there. Timothy Green, apologies for missing a few shows. I have been in the hospital. Hey,
Hope
don't
everything's
worry
okay.
about it. It's archived. Your health takes priority, brother.
Heck yeah. Not even close.
Numbskull Music, y'all have a great show. Thank you, Numbskull Music.
Didn't know he had a music channel.
Yeah,
Didn't know.
I hope it's
Probably pretty
originals.
good. Well, either that or it may be there for a little while. That's it.
Jan Hulk joining us from Slovenia in the early morning.
Hmm.
Hey, Jan, thanks for joining us. Mooncat, good evening, all. Good evening, Mooncat.
Hey.
Billy Tuesday, howdy, folks.
Another Buckeye.
Yeah, I like that PFP. That's the old school. That's the
Yeah.
1970s style Ohio State. Mr. Monkey says is in for a bit. Monkey.
Good to have you, man.
Jim F, rock and roll. Antoine Codes, good evening, Antoine. Good to see you here.
Getting the band back together here tonight.
Yeah, Jay Baller, 54. Time to rock and roll. Yeah, we're ready to roll. Anthony Mazzano, hashtag mob. Hi, Moan. That's Moen, but I'll forgive it because I'm sure that's auto-corrected. I thought only pyramid hats protected you against alien mind reading. That's true, but this is more
they
stylish.
tell you. They
This is
tell
more
you that
stylish.
so that way you
Yeah.
wear something that actually doesn't work. You gotta be careful.
Two Master, holy Miami smokes. Yes, if you didn't
Yeah.
catch Greg's show tonight, the smoke or the heavy chalk is clearly on Miami being the travel partner
We'll probably
with
get into it a
Florida
little
State,
bit.
which we will definitely get into that later on.
Oh yeah, we will.
Caden's dad's here as well. Good to see you, Caden's dad.
Yeah, we hate pulling from Greg. We were holding as long as we could.
Yeah, I'm East Coast, guys, so I can't
Yeah.
be up drinking whiskey till 11 o'clock at night.
I'm Phoenix. I'm like, we can hold up. He's like, no. All right, let's go.
Moen, if you had to build your dream starting 11 on both offense and defense for Ohio State, who would it be? That might be a Moen Explains It All members video. We might have to do that for you. Archie Griffin would be in the backfield, obviously, but beyond that, CJ Stroud might be my QB.
It's a good pick.
Daniel Gygax is in a room full of sad 49ers fans. Yeah. So I told Immaculate, I said it wasn't looking like a very competitive game by the time we got on.
I'm telling you, man. I like Detroit. I like their coach. I think they're going to be tough. They could go all. Man, is that Detroit Lions Super Bowl champions? Oh my God, that happens. I just can't be a Bears fan anymore. I'm really not anymore, but absolutely at that point.
Jim F thinks that I need a Faraday cage in the background here. We'd go up like a cinder. We had a Faraday cage back here. Immaculate Moen, I finally figured out why I can't accept gift memberships. This account is apparently a brand account and it's not allowed. Well, there you go.
What's a brand account? You guys probably know that better than I do.
A brand account is basically just that. It's an account where all your brands are underneath it. So the Big 12 Mafia account is a brand account.
Oh, okay.
So it's the main brand on your account. You can have other accounts underneath it that are not brand accounts.
Oh, you get okay. Yeah,
If
I've
you
never
want
done anything like that.
because you can just create a new account underneath it. It won't be a brand account. Otherwise, we'll just keep sticking to it. Like I said, we'll release those members only videos as they become available to the general public after a little bit of limited exclusivity. All right, so let's go ahead and I will let you start off, talk a little bit about the Iowa offensive coordinator. I know you have some things you want to say.
Well, if anyone hasn't heard yet, they finally hired a guy. It's Tim Lester from, you may have known him as a head coach for Western Michigan. He's been serving as a senior analyst for the Green Bay Packers. It was between him and a guy named Kevin Johns, who was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Duke last year. Kind of looked like with the incoming new coaching regime, he was not being kept on. Both of them were in Iowa City. Both of them were interviewed multiple days in a row. I mean, it was the whole experience. It was really coming down to those two guys. And for whatever reason, Tim Lester got the job. Me personally, looking at Kevin Johns and what he did at Duke, the style of ball he played, the guys he played, his quarterback was picked up by Notre Dame. So as a quarterbacks coach, which we really need, he was excellent. So I just thought that Kevin Johns was by far the better pick. His resume, the style he played, and the fact that he was just being an offensive coordinator in college ball versus being an analyst at a professional team where what does he do? He probably just sits around and stares at film and then talks about it with the boys. I mean, there's a lot more work involved with the college side, especially when you're getting into the coordinating and recruiting. So we'll see how it goes. There's a lot of angst within the community, but there's a lot of people that are like, hey, we're happy with it. We're glad to kind of get someone new in there to check it out. So we'll see how it goes next year with the brand new offense coordinator, Tim Lester.
Do you think he'll do better or worse than Brian?
Can't do worse. He was 133rd in offense ranked. There's not a 134th team. Honestly, if he does not play Deacon Hill, if he doesn't ever play him, like even if Cade goes down again or doesn't work out, go to a different quarterback, and if he doesn't use Hill, I think he'll do better. Like Deacon Hill is just, I hate to be rude, but kind of probably the worst FBS quarterback that's ever taken the field, started, played an entire game ever. I mean, I'm not saying that like sarcastically. I honestly believe that.
Oh, we know you genuinely believe that.
Like,
we've heard
the
that
worst
from you.
I mean, good guy. Team seems to love him. That's great. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of the community they have in the culture. They get real tight knit. But as a quarterback, he's not good. So as long as they give him the power to not push that kid, I think they'll be okay. So we'll see.
The other thing I wanted to bring up before we get into college football realignment and get to more of your questions is NIL. In particular, I don't know how many people saw it this week, but the Ohio State NIL, the foundation, raised over $1 million in a single week. And that's from 500,000 of that came directly from fans, and their executive board matched the other 500,000 to do that. So this NIL deal is going to be getting much, 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 much more extreme if we don't get some guidelines on it. Because right now, Ohio State does not have a professional team to compete with in Columbus for money. So they've got the Columbus Blue Jackets, the hockey team, but that's pretty much it. That's why you don't put the old joke in Ohio, why doesn't Columbus have a professional football team? Because if Columbus had one, Cincinnati and Cleveland would want one too. So it really is Ohio State, Ohio State, Ohio State. But let's go ahead and start getting to some of y'all's questions. Big Lubbock is in the house. The Big 12 needs to offer Clemson $8 million more, $40 million in media payout, which would equal approximately $60 million Clemson to get Clemson to come over. I don't know about that.
Where's the extra 20 coming from? I think that it's great. I've been saying Clemson to the Big 12. I think it's actually going to happen. And I do think that the combination of schools that could come over there will raise their payout. But I'm not quite understanding here where the up to 40 and then up to 60, whatever that is. Do you know what he means by that?
I think that he's talking about total media payout.
Oh, some of the other things like before, like we're at 31 and they went up to 44.
Right. Your total payout. So then they'd have to get to 8. And Mooncat with a super chat. Thank you, Mooncat.
Winner.
My mother-in-law had a heart attack, and I haven't been around for the past week and a half. Could you give me the major updates over the past 2 weeks? Sure. What we know so far is Florida State is continuing to sue the ACC to get out. North Carolina and North Carolina State seem to be tied at the hip. There was a vote that the Board of Governors basically assumed full control over that. So anybody goes anywhere, they need approval from the Board of Governors. We've heard from Virginia and Virginia Tech that they're along similar lines. And we just heard not 30 minutes ago from Greg Pflugar, godfather of college football realignment, that Miami is the heavy chalk to be the travel partner for Florida State should Notre Dame or UNC not be made available to the Big Ten. And they have the backing of Ohio State and Michigan and some of the other more prominent schools within the Big Ten. So I think that covers it. Did I miss anything, Immaculate? It's been a busy 2 weeks.
Yeah, like anything else I could add to that's probably more along the lines of the NCAA situation. And some of that is going to affect realignment. It 100% will. It just hasn't metastasized enough for us to know how, like what it's going to push. It's going to push it. We don't really know how, but that's had some pretty big movement as well over the past 2 weeks, where it looks like the President Baker's plan that he was trying to push, some of the major conferences do not agree with it. They do not like it. Whatever that meeting happened here on past Thursday, there was not enough headway made on it for their favored media reporter guy Dellinger to really say anything about it. So that we're at a bit of a standstill with that situation, but that's going on as well.
So that's where it stands at right now, Mooncat, but it might all be different tomorrow. So stay tuned here to Big 12 Mafia. We'll keep you apprised and updated as we can. Thank you again for the super chat. I certainly hope your mother-in-law is feeling better.
Absolutely.
From Anthony Manzano, why do you guys think in general these big guys who cover the sport of college football put so much emphasis that the Big Ten has to have their schools be part of the AAU? Is it really important? I'll let you grab that one.
All right. It's an old talking point. And when they were looking to, add a school here, add a school there, and any pay increases were, in a couple million. Like that, at that point in time, they had to be a part of other things to make it worthwhile in the Big Ten. So yes, the AAU status really was kind of mandatory. By statements that have come out since then, it's not. And that kind of passes the sniff test because there's so much more money in sports now. And they're seeing example number one is how much sports can improve your university with what happened to Alabama, that it's kind of changed the mentality. And you can see it in the Big Ten. The Big Ten used to be so gung-ho for basketball, and it's just not as much anymore, and they're really trying to do all their growth in football. And it's kind of starting to cost them in basketball. But it's just kind of point and matter that it's changed the mentality, and surprising to see how much more football seems to be mattering with the Big Ten.
Yeah,
what do you think on that, though?
It's very interesting how AAU is not the end-all be-all for a school. The school can get in and not be AAU, but you have to have your academics up to a certain level. They're not going to let I don't want to disparage any particular school, but they're not going to let a community college level school into the Big Ten. They're simply not going to do it. Part of the strength of the Big Ten is the alumni base, and part of that prestige of the alumni base is having a Big Ten degree, much the same way the Pac-12 used to be. So it's not the end all be all, but they definitely want to get there.
And just to kind of add to that, while it's not necessary per se, you'd have to be someone like a Florida State to get in without it. So you can get in without it, but your other numbers, your other things that they're adding up to figure out your realignment ranking, so to speak, it's got to be pretty high. And that number of schools is very limited. And that's why I've said no Florida State and Clemson in the same move, because it's too much of that same no AAU, no big research. Okay, if we want one big program to come in and help sell an expansion to like Fox, you only need one really for that. And then the other one, they want to make the conference more what they actually do, the universities, the research, the academics. So it matters a lot. It's not 100% necessary. And some people are a little behind that. Going back to the question, a lot of big sports talk people, they don't really do realignment that much. So they're a little behind.
But keep in mind for our members, and if you have a chance to, and you are a member, I'd recommend you check out Wild Youth's latest video. Clemson actually does more research than Oregon does. And Oregon is in the AAU. So just want to throw that out there. Timothy Green, now that was funny about Cincinnati. Yeah, that's an old joke. First time somebody told me that joke, I couldn't even laugh. I just rolled over in my cradle and shit. The current Big 12. Okay, so yeah, the Big Lubbock's going to explain his comment from earlier. The current Big 12 media payout is $22 million, but the total payout per school was $42 million. So the Big 12 is making $20 million per school in non-media payout income. So he's saying they need to find another 8 to get to 50. Yeah, I don't know. I still think Clemson winds up in the SEC at the end of the day.
Yeah, if they can get into the SEC, they're going to go for that. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I mean, if this is going with Miami, and we'll get more into that here in a little bit, but if that's the case, I think that the SEC is not going to want to leave the East Coast wide open to future moves. So we'll see. We'll see who they decide to go with.
Daniel Gygax. Mo, and the joke I've heard from a lot of people from Central Ohio is I'm a fan of all 3 pro football teams in Ohio. That's true. That's another version of it. But I'm a Bengals fan, so I'll never miss a chance to take a shot at them because I love them so much. J Baller 54. So if that turns out true, what Greg said, where does FSU go? Do they now go to the SEC? I just can't see them staying in the ACC.
Oh, no, that's before Miami.
Yes. Yeah. Florida State would be 19. Miami would be 20.
Yeah. Yeah. We've always kind of considered now at this point in time, Florida State's a guarantee. You won't find Florida State on any old vetted lists. You won't find them talked about a lot in the past because no one in the Big Ten ever really thought that was possible. Also in the past, they wouldn't have made the grade at the time. Things have changed. Florida State's basically a guaranteed. If they get out, I think that the Big Ten and them is guaranteed. The talk was, is it a Miami? Is it a Georgia Tech? Is it a Clemson for number 20? And with what he's saying, I've gotten burned going against him before, so I'm kind of leaning. And I know you're feeling that way, and you have your reasons for it. So between the two of you guys, I'm kind of letting go of the Georgia Tech thing for now. Well, still a possibility, but I'm not going to sit here and I think it's Georgia Tech. If he's right, it's looking Miami.
We'll need to come up with a new drinking game, guys. So I'm going to put that to you guys in chat. If we can't say Georgia Tech and drink off of that anymore, we'll have to figure out something else. And it can't be something obvious like Miami, After FSU and Miami, does the Big expand again if Notre Dame isn't one of the new teams? Is that when Georgia Tech gets in, or will it be ASU? Or is it stopped until A&M leaves the SEC? Now, I know we both have different views on this. Where do you ultimately see the Big Ten landing?
Ultimately, 24 to 25. I think I'm still in alignment that it's 20 until we get the new situation figured out, whether it's with the NCAA, whether it's without, full autonomy within it. However that gets figured out, they need a bunch of new rules. They need to get things figured out. And I think they want to do that before they go too far. Now, of course, Notre Dame changes that. If Notre Dame comes calling the day after they add Florida State and Miami, well, guess what? They're going to figure it out.
They'll be the blackjack conference. There'll be 21
Yeah.
teams of 3 17 divisions. They will find a way to make that work. Now, for me, I believe the final number is 24, and I believe Notre Dame does join, but I agree with you. It's not till the next media deal.
Yeah.
And at that point, you will have Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Kansas joining the Big Ten.
Yeah. Whether it's scheduled or not, they both end at 29, right? Both Notre Dame and the Big Ten deals.
Yes.
So it's like, people say, oh, that's not intended. I don't care. Like, it is what it is. It makes it very easy to transition if they want to. In terms of that, are you still pretty heavy on A&M? Like,
I like A&M. I think they have to get a school in Texas. If you're going to be a national brand, you have to have a brand in Texas.
I think now that I'm kind of giving up on the GT thing, I think my sleeper one to push, I'm just gonna do it. I think it's Arizona State for the future. If what you're saying is true, I think they're not going to do 6 divisions of 4. I don't think that's quite. I mean, it's kind of weak. I could see 4 divisions of 6 maybe, but I'm kind of still leaning with that 5 and 25. So if that's the case, they need one more Western school.
Well, maybe if they go to 25, I think 24, and at that point you figure it out. I mean,
would you do 4 divisions of 6 or 6 divisions of 4?
I would probably do 4 divisions or 6 divisions of 4, just for regional sake.
That would mean you wouldn't have to expand out west anymore.
Right. You would just stick at 4 in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing against Arizona State. It's I think Texas A&M is a more important grab.
Yeah, it's not even close.
A more important grab. And speaking of Kansas, Billy Tuesday, basketball has become unwatchable. But then again, I'm oldish. Yeah, that's been one of the running jokes around Columbus this week with raising the $1 million was to get Chris Holtman fired, pay his buyout.
And with that, I actually think that's going to change. With NIL, I think you're going to start to see college players, some of them in basketball, stick around a little bit longer. This one and done might be ending to some degree. When the reality is you stay in college, get good NIL money. There's some basketball players getting very good NIL money. Or do you go and possibly end up playing in the G League? Because there's a lot of guys that go up, and even in the first round of the draft to the NBA, and you never hear them again. So I think there's going to be a lot of guys staying, and I think college basketball is going to be vastly improving in quality due to it in the future.
Well, the Big Ten definitely needs to improve in it because it's been far too long since the Big Ten had a national champion.
Mm-hmm. I think they're just focused right now on football improvements, spending money on coaches in football. And I think that their basketball situation is kind of stagnated, but that's an easier one to pick back up. That's a smaller investment.
Daniel Gygax wants to know why Miami over the engineering school in Atlanta. That is rather confusing.
Do you want to go with that one? I know
I'll go ahead and answer that. It's the market. It's Miami. There's certain things about Miami that make the market very appealing. In particular, financial access to international markets that you wouldn't get from a place like Atlanta. I do think Georgia Tech eventually does get into the Big Ten because I think eventually they want to add that Atlanta market. But for right now, the choice is Miami. In addition to that,
that's Notre Dame bait.
You got to remember that this is all designed to get Notre Dame to come along. You've added USC, you've got Michigan, you've got Purdue, you've got all these rivals for Notre Dame, and now you can add Miami too, and take one more rival away from them. So that's why. Will it happen? We'll have to wait and see. Can they get the money? Yes, Miami can get the money. I think if it becomes a settlement issue, they're waiting to see what the settlement Florida cuts, and they will cut that check the next day if they know they have a spot in the Big Ten.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about just real quick on that, if you think about all the schools that they'd want to play in the Big Ten with this, you'd have Florida State and Miami, the newest ones coming in. Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue are their old rivals within the conference. USC to the west, probably some UCLA. I mean, it's still there locally. Maybe Washington if they want to get into the Seattle market. And I'm going to say it, Maryland, Rutgers, despite what people think, are good draws for Notre Dame from where they want to be seen, along with Penn State. So that's a lot of schools that Notre Dame would not mind playing. So it's 100% Notre Dame bait.
Yeah, again, it's a national. If you're trying to build a national college football brand, you want to have the biggest national brand, which is probably Notre Dame. I know it just every year it flips between Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, but you're going to want to have Notre Dame there. Notre Dame's going to want to be able to recruit. And if you're basically telling them you can recruit New York, you can recruit Florida, you can recruit Chicago, you can recruit California, you can recruit Ohio, you can recruit Michigan, you can recruit those big old linemen in the Corn Belt. They're going to jump all over that. So. Nathan Campbell, who is the new Big 12 members other than Louisville and Pittsburgh? Well, Louisville and Pittsburgh, and I like Syracuse and UConn.
I'm going Louisville, Pittsburgh, Clemson. I think they're going to try and take a stab at GT, but I think GT is probably going to try and hold out. Maybe we'll see. I would go Louisville, Pittsburgh, Clemson. I don't know. I think Syracuse is a little too private.
It's a New York market.
I know. They would try it if they want. We'll see. But yeah, I would say Louisville, Pittsburgh, Clemson +1. We'll see on
that. Jan Hulk, if bid get to FSU and Miami and go to 20, after that I see the SEC adding UNC, UVA, and Clemson, but then I really don't know who would be its 20th. Well, unfortunately, they're going to have to find room for North Carolina State or figure out a way to take care of North Carolina State. The Board of Governors has basically made it impossible for UNC to go anywhere unless little brother's taken care of. So I think you have to add both of those schools if you want to add one. I think the same is true of Virginia and Virginia Tech. Clemson, I do see eventually becoming an SEC school. I just don't see it this go-around. I eventually see them as the backfill for Texas A&M. What do you think?
UNC and UV, whether they're going to have to take Virginia Tech and North Carolina State with them, I think that's under negotiation right now. I think that's an ongoing, both public and private facing negotiation. I think they're going to have to, and I think they will, because if this Florida State thing happens, it's going to change. It's just going to change. People are going to have different perspectives suddenly afterward, kind of like how when USC and UCLA announced, it changed things for the Pac. All of a sudden, things became real. We've already had that due to this extended situation with Florida State. So now their departure will also be having the same effect as when Colorado announced. So once that hits, you're going to have a lot of tunes changing. And if all of a sudden people start hearing, well, Miami's in, it's going to freak some schools out. And some folks are going to be looking to leave. Some deals can be made. So I think that those 4 North Carolina and Virginia schools all go to the SEC. So I think Clemson's in a real hard spot.
Yeah, I think at that point they would take the Big 12, but I don't think they stay there long. I think they would be the prime candidate for the SEC to backfill if someone leaves.
Oh, yeah, backfilling for sure.
Kansas to the Big Ten sounds right. For me, they have a lot of money and they're putting it into their sports. They also have a lot of research. Also a cultural fit. We talk about cultural fit all the time.
Yep.
And the Big Ten desperately needs basketball brands. Desperately. And they fill all those in.
Yeah,
I want to get to this question from Jan Hulk real quick. If and when Notre Dame joins to the Big Ten, do you think Stanford will go with them? No, Stanford will never be allowed in the Big Ten.
No.
End of story. They did something very bad. And they will never be allowed in the Big Ten because of that. All right. Now I'll let you go back. I'll let you go back to that Kansas.
No, that's all good. I have Kansas in my 24-25 Lime situation. they're good enough on their own, like saying, with the research, with the style of school, the culture. Basketball will definitely help. But they are making moves in football, man. I mean, they're overall facilities, training facilities, weight room facilities they did. And then now with the stadium, being able to hold on to your coach when other people come calling, that's bigger than people think. I mean, that's a very big deal. That shows some stability. Like if we're looking at you maybe in a few years down the road, that you're still going to be what you are now. So, yeah, I think Kansas has gone up in value. My realignment ranking for them, we haven't really put out a official thing, but I would say Kansas has been going up.
Yeah, I think they're always going to be in the mix. Mr. Monkey says Kansas can help Big Ten with basketball. Yes, there are only so many blue blood basketball schools. SEC might have UK and UNC soon. Yes. Or we can just get Purdue and Indiana to maybe win a title eventually.
Can they start playing basketball in Indiana again, please? Yeah.
Well, they can't play football, that's for sure. Mooncat, I appreciate the niche program this has with Question Driven that meshes well with Mafia and PATC. Thank you. Hey, Mooncat, this is your guys' show. I know it says Moen After Dark. Immaculate's 100% the co-host. It's a 50-50 deal, but the other part of it is you guys. This is your show. You drive the show. You drive the topics. We'll bring up some topics from time to time, but any questions you have, comments you want to make, we will feature them here. We get to member comments first and foremost, but we try to get as many comments in as we can while the limited time we have available to us. So by all means, go ahead and put your comments and your questions in the chat. We'll love to read them out loud, and we'll come up with some answers for you. Might not be good answers, but they will be answers.
It might be wrong someday, but we try to put a lot of thought into what we do say with you guys, and we learn from you guys as well. Don't get me wrong; it's not a one-way street here. I mean, the fact that we all kind of sit here together and throw out these ideas together and have these conversations, it's pretty important. At least it is to us. And if you see anyone else on here with us anytime on the Sunday show, it's not an interview. They're with us taking part in this. So it's just, that's something that we think is very important for this one. And it's focused on interacting with you guys first and foremost.
Big Dog, Sergeant Pickles is in the chat. Evening all, a little late getting in. What did I miss? Georgia Tech, we need a new drinking game.
Yep. I'm thinking Notre Dame, to be honest.
Notre Dame? That's not a bad one.
Kind of thinking.
It's not a bad one. But it looks like Miami is going to be number 20. If Florida State moves and Miami can get free as well, it looks like Miami is going to be the heavy chalk to the Big Ten.
I'm letting go of my rope on that one.
That comes per Greg Flugar. So, I mean, that's pretty close to a bullseye.
We'll just say he's not the only one that's been
saying that. There's other people who've been saying Miami for very specific
some
reasons.
Sources and things. So it just comes down to like, okay, at some point in time, you just kind of got to look at it and go, this is probably what's happening.
I like this. Clemson, Pitt, Louisville, Duke to the Big 12. Do you think that Duke would lower themselves to go to the Big 12, or do you think they'd be like Stanford and hold their noses too high?
If Duke did, it would mean all of those ideas, like the one I've been putting and some others, are all just out the window. Like it's not happening. No go. Okay, we need to go find a place. Then, yes. What percentage would I put on that at this point in time? I don't know, 10%. I wouldn't put them highly listed, but I wouldn't say it's not possible.
Yeah, Duke athletics would be right in line with the Big 12. And I don't want people to think that I'm denigrating the Big 12. I'm not. I'm just saying from the Duke position, Duke is a very arrogant school.
They just got their Stanford brothers with them. They're pretty close. I just think that they're starting to do something there. And even if that falls down, I think that's a big pill. They don't need that money as much as some other schools. I mean, they're pretty well to do.
Kenneth Evans, the SEC will not take VPI, Virginia Tech, or North Carolina State. Well, I think if that's the case, they're not getting North Carolina or Virginia.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Sergeant Pickles wants to let us know he has gotten several more 3 to 4 star transfers and 2 key young guys are returning. Might actually put together a decent first big season. It's going to ask you, Pickles, what about the cornerback that left Washington to go to Oregon?
Yeah. Oof.
That's got to be comfortable.
I mean, it kind of makes that rivalry look a little bit less. I mean, most players, you're not leaving your school to go play for the rival. So that was a bit kind of like, maybe there's not that much hate there anyways.
It's happened at Ohio State and Michigan before.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
If we had any guys from Iowa go to Iowa State, I think we'd just completely disown them.
Rock Chalk. Big adds Florida State, Miami, SEC grabs UNC, North Carolina State, UVA, Virginia Tech. He has Big 12 grabbing Louisville, Pitt, Clemson, and Georgia Tech.
It's good for. I mean, if Georgia Tech is willing to go and they're on there and it gets you into Atlanta, I say go for that. That's a pretty good foursome right there.
Immaculate. What about Cal coming into the Big in a 24 team? They don't have the baggage of Stanford.
I have them in one theory that I never really brought up. But if that private league was to go real big, and say a USC was to jump, then I could. And that's the only time. And that's a very low percentage. I just don't see it. They already got 2 schools. I think that, if they need one more out west, I think that an Arizona State, a Utah, or even a Colorado is a better pick.
I don't disagree with any of those picks over Cal. You've already got the California market. You've already got Los Angeles.
San Francisco market's not good for college athletics. It's not good for viewership. It's almost non-existent. Like, you think it's this big, but it's really like that big. It's there's not much viewership there.
Jan Hulk, what did Stanford do? I don't know the story. Not a lot of people do, but needless to say, they stepped on the wrong people's toes. They did not make any friends. They said something and then went back on it. So they're not they're persona non grata for right now. Clemson. I think Pitt and Louisville are available to the Big 12 in any scenario, and they take the offer. I think Pitt, and I said this a couple weeks ago, Pitt is the new Utah.
Yeah.
They're going to get dragged into the Big 12 kicking and screaming.
Yeah, if they hate it, then, well, it's our new conference. We'll make the best of it. We like it.
It's like that old song, Camp Granada. Once they get there, they'll love it. We don't want to go. No.
I think they actually will like it, though.
Don't sleep on the SEC being interested in Kansas. Kansas University with Kentucky and UNC bring back Big 8 foes, Missouri and Oklahoma. Well, a possibility. I mean, if they need to backfill or if they want to go beyond 20, they're going to have to pick up some other teams. I mean, I've seen Oklahoma State is another name that was bandied around.
If the SEC was ever to call Kansas, and one of their people call them, not like that doesn't happen directly, but if that call was ever to be made, and Kansas was to go, hey, Big, are you still interested? I think the Big Ten's saying, don't go.
Yeah,
you'll be fine. Don't go. So I don't think that there's much possibility of that, not enough to actually take into. I think there's more chance that Missouri ends up in the Big Ten than I think Kansas ends up in the SEC. So there you go.
Yeah, Missouri has bad blood with the Big Ten too. I wouldn't.
I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying I'm that serious that the Big Ten would probably say to Kansas, "Don't go. We need you for our divisional lineups later."
As much as I get on Notre Dame for holding the grudge over the Fielding Yost thing, the Big Ten people hold grudges as well for ridiculously long amount of times. Yep, graduated to a tinfoil. Well, no, the house is a house. I just put tinfoil up. It's actually aluminum foil. It keeps the aliens and the Big Ten commissioners out of my head. Let's get on the wagon and make Coastal Carolina the drinking game school. Okay. Nobody's going to drink. We're all going to be as sober as judges.
I was going to say, well, there goes drinking.
Nate would like that. Miami and Washington actually have some history with splitting the 1991 championship and a very intense home and home in the early 2000s. Well, there you go.
That's about as far away as you can get to
Yeah.
go from Miami to Seattle or Seattle to Miami. I think that's probably the longest trip anywhere on continental U.S.
Yeah, probably that or going from Southern California to Maine.
Yeah, but Southern California kind of curves. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
When you look at the curvature.
We got, if anybody wants to do the math on that or do the map on that, you go ahead and do the map on that. What's further away from Seattle, Piscataway, New Jersey, or Miami? Because maybe the curvature of the earth actually shortens it. Moen, if Duke ended up in the Big 12, I think Vanderbilt will too because of baseball. I don't see Vanderbilt ever leaving the SEC. I just do not.
I have a small theory.
Yeah, I know.
Just for Nathan, maybe, but it's not a high chance at this point in time.
Where does Utah and Colorado stand if the bid goes to 24-25 behind ASU, KU, and Georgia Tech? I think they would be behind all three of those schools.
I think Utah is definitely behind, unfortunately. I think ASU is higher than Utah, although that's not a slam on Utah. Utah has done great things there. It's just ASU has become actually a strategic asset of the United States. We're going into superconductor talk. That's an entirely different range of things we like to talk about. But they've become very important, and so has kind of the Phoenix area. So I put ASU above them. Colorado is interesting because they are geographically agile. When we start to create divisions, they could go in two different divisions. They could go with the Nebraska division, or they could go with the West Coast division. So I have them just behind ASU, but if the things pan out that we need another one to go east into that division, then I would actually put them ahead of ASU. No one in front of Kansas. And GT, let's just put them in the air right now. I'm not quite sure where I would rank them, but for now, because everyone's looking east, I'd put them ahead of all of those schools.
How long do you think it will take for the ACC to totally go away? I do not think the ACC totally goes away, and neither does Immaculate. Immaculate has
not enough positions.
The IVCC, is that what we're calling your?
That's not bad. We'll call it the IVCC. It's basically
IVCC.
If the Ivy League wants to be part of the autonomous conferences and have a voice in it, they can't do that from an FCS conference. They have to move up, and the only way to move up like that is to get invited to a conference. So they would have to find a conference home. And the ACC, once it gets almost destroyed, is a great home.
Ryan Willie with the super chat.
Oh, yeah.
Cal can't fill their stadium. You're absolutely right. And they just paid, I think, close to $1 billion to renovate it.
Some more genius work out of there.
Sergeant Pickles lets us know Muhammad was at Oklahoma State for 3 years and only at UW for 1. Actually shocked he didn't go into the draft. I would have had him as a mid-round pick, but Uncle Phil got then $. Well, just saying, Ohio State ain't far behind. We ain't got shoe money.
That is fair, though. He wasn't really deeply involved in the whole Washington, Oregon culture.
The San Francisco market is not good for indoor plumbing. Probably not. Yeah. Immaculate, I live in the Bay Area. You are 100% on college athletics. Now it's a great baseball and NBA market. Sell the team.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I wanted to pound my head on something when I'd be in chats and conversations and going way back, and people would be like, "Oh, you get the Bay Area." I'm like, "No, you don't. You don't get jack from the Bay Area. It doesn't matter. It's why USC, UCLA, and that's LA. And LA is not great, but they'll actually watch college sports. Bay Area does not."
Sergeant Pickles, Seattle to Miami is 4,400 miles. LA to Boston is 4,170. Well, that's Boston. I said Maine. Come on.
That's fair. That might get a little bit closer.
Yeah, it might be pretty close and even. It's
curvature.
Right. I think the scientific term is it's a shitload of miles. It's a shitload of miles. So I definitely wouldn't want to be making that trip, but I'm not making millions of dollars playing football either.
Can you imagine though if you were at Washington, you're a player for Washington, you get on a plane there, and it's like gloomy and rainy. It's Seattle. You get on a plane, you fly all that way, and you land in Miami in the same day in sunny Miami, Florida beach, beaches you could swim at. Like that is one hell of a conference.
Don in Kansas would prefer Kansas stay in the Big 12. He's one of the few Kansas fans I've seen
I get
actually say
There's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
He's not the only one. There are a lot of people, and that's why I approach that conversation very gingerly, because I know that that's kind of a tripping point for some folks, and it's just from a Big Ten perspective. That's the type of value they see in Kansas. And if Kansas decides to stay in the Big 12 and be a major player there, then congratulations, wish the best, and that's perfectly fine.
Mr. Monkey says, letting us know San Francisco and Detroit is now tied.
How did that happen? Damn it.
Detroit gonna Detroit, people. Moen, do you have your roller skates on for after show festivities? No. Yeah, I'm not allowed on skates anymore. There were too many fatalities. Kyle Visser, actually having someone that wants to invest in players will fill the Coliseum. I think he's talking about USC. Again, the Coliseum is not in great shape, but until John Fisher stopped paying players, not bad crowds. That's true. Winning tends to do that for you.
I think I dare say, I think that the LA crowd will actually like better that it's more of a national conference than just a West Coast conference. LA kind of looks at the rest of the West Coast almost like it's inferior. Of course, that's coming from my Arizona mentality and what I've learned here. But I think that those folks will actually like a more national conference to be part of.
Here's a good question from Jim F. Where are the Ivies going to find enough FBS football players who can graduate from those programs? They have to have a harder time than Notre
Funny
Dame.
enough, Harvard had a player on each NFL team out of the last 4 teams. Harvard, if you notice in the portal, often the Ivy guys will jump into the portal before the rest, and there's always a good amount of them. They get good players, and those players tend to be very smart, which a lot of coaches like. They like having some of those guys then come over onto their teams. The NFL likes getting guys from some of those schools, and they have shit tons of money if they want to go out and buy people with NIL at some point in time and just say, you screwed our model of not paying anyone scholarships so that we can have our legacies, guys that spend a lot of money and go there. Some of them, they want to have their boys playing on the team or their daughters playing on one of the teams. Those are the legacies, and that's why they have no scholarships, so they can just put legacy players in there and have them be on the teams. But if that's going to change, they're coming angry. Like, they're not just going to skip in and be like, okay, drag us along. Like, they're going to come in and try and knock people out, and they have the money to do it. So it'll be interesting to see. And that's kind of the theory. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It may not, but they have multiple lawsuits on them right now going after them for their scholarship model. They're also part of a class action lawsuit towards a bunch of privates for trying to price fix. So we'll see. But they do get plenty of players. I mean, they have full teams. Dartmouth went 10-2 in the FCS. So
there you go. Mr. Monkey says, hating Michigan, are you rooting against the Lions, or does that not register? Honestly, the only one I was rooting against today was the Chiefs and the Ravens. I hate both of those teams. So
I guess you're pulling for the Lions then.
I'm pulling for whoever in the NFC can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't like the Chiefs. I don't like the Ravens because of Harbaugh. As far as the 49ers Lions, I'm winning either way because you've got Ohio State Buckeyes on the O-line for the Lions, and you've got Ohio State Buckeyes on the D-line for the 49ers. So, and I see that we've just got an update that the 49ers are now up 27-24. This is quickly becoming the 28-3 comeback level from the Atlanta New England Super Bowl.
But it's like half the team of Detroit just like check out and head back to the hotel. What the?
Kyle Shanahan makes great adjustments at halftime.
He seriously did. Wow.
Yeah. He's always been known for that. They were actually talking about the Coliseum in East Oakland. So he's talking about the baseball. Although, is the baseball team staying in Oakland?
I don't know where that's at now. I thought that they were going to Vegas, but then I've seen that fell through. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. Yeah, my thoughts were that they were working towards getting to Vegas.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Daniel, let us know if that's still the case. I thought they were moving to Vegas. I thought that was a done deal. Kyle, boy.
Good luck.
Boy, oh boy. Boy, that's like that Superman visual.
Is that like Juzik?
Villain. Yeah, Jizizik? Jizizik. Mr. Mixopedo level. Baseball team going Vegas, but they don't have a stadium in Vegas except a minor league field.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, they'll have to. It's not like there's not money in Vegas to.
I thought like the city of Henderson, which if anyone knows, it's like their version of here Scottsdale or like a Bel Air over there. They actually offered to build a stadium for a team. So if Vegas can get their stuff together, I think Henderson would take it.
Do you guys think that Darth ESPN plan is not renewing the ACC option in 2025 and reshaping what we have come to respect in regards to current conference structure?
Yeah, I don't think that it's the fact that even happened to me tells the whole story. The fact that there was a 2021 decision time and the ACC, without getting the schools to vote on it, they just quietly, the commissioner and administration just quietly gave ESPN the option to, don't decide now. Decide in 25 instead. Like they were gonna say no. That's why the ACC would do that. They wouldn't do that if they thought ESPN was going to say yes. They would be like, yes, tell us yes now. We'll get this out of the way. It's done. That didn't happen. ESPN was going to say no, and at least that's what I think ACC was at least thinking if they didn't know for sure. So with all this going on, with how much they're pushing the SEC and not the ACC, I think ESPN is done.
Yeah,
I think 2027 is the last ESPN is going to be dealing with the ACC. I do think they could still sell that off. They could sell if Apple wants to get in on something, this whole IVACC idea or whatever it is. That's a great option. And so then they could buy the ACC network. They could maybe partner with ESPN, Disney. But on their own, no, I think that they're done.
Yeah, it's incredible to me. The ACC, ESPN was reaching for some Vaseline, and the ACC said, no.
Yeah.
Hold
not
off.
Just yet. Not just yet.
Let us
We're not
really
ready.
take it. Nathan Campbell, do you see a super conferences? I don't see super conferences the way people are trying to push them. No, I do not see the Big Ten, SEC blocking out everybody else from college football.
Yeah, it's a nice threat to try to get people to go along with what you want to happen, but it's bad business.
Cleveland rocks with the important questions. I've lost all my streaming on my TV and have to use my phone. Who do I contact? As Xfinity Cable said, it's not their problem. I'll let you handle this.
I have Xfinity Cable is who you stream with, and they're saying it's not their problem. You'd have to ask them who their system is overlaying over. Like if there's some other company that's actually running the actual infrastructure, the actual cable, like the actual cable company locally, maybe contact them. That's about the best I got for that.
Yeah, that's a new one, Cleveland Rocks. But thanks for the question. We did solicit questions, and you asked a question, and it's a very valid one. My suggestion would be to drop cable entirely. Go
bang it with a hammer.
Yeah,
bang it with a hammer.
Use T-Mobile, and then you only have your internet drop 4 or 5 times a day. But you know what? It drops 4 or 5 times a day, but I don't have cable, so. Why not those 4 go to the Big 12 if the ACC implodes? I think if they don't get into the SEC, I don't think they go anywhere. I think they stick with the ACC. I think for economic reasons, historical reasons, cultural reasons, I think that all four would stick with with the ACC.
Yeah, it's kind of sticking with the same thing. I still think it's those four to the SEC for now. If that doesn't happen, I think there could be some option for state and tech with the Big 12. I think that might require ESPN to say, okay, we'll pay that up a little bit because we're getting rid of a whole bunch of schools that we're no longer have to deal with, so they can afford to pay a little bit more. Plus, Fox would be getting all those schools, so I think that they wouldn't mind upping Big 12's pay a little bit. So I think it's possible. We'll have to see how this plays out a little bit, though.
We got a $20 super chat from Wayne Gerbach. Wow.
Winner.
Well, I can appreciate if you can't always make it live, but with gifts like that, we may be hoping you do make it around a little bit more.
Try and make it. Sunday's usually at 8.
Yeah.
Do I think Kleinholtz will probably go? I think they'll both probably go, to be honest with you. There's just not enough room in that quarterback room for those guys. Devin Browns was highly recruited. Kleinholtz was a Washington recruit. I don't know how Washington's doing for a quarterback right now, but he might have an option there. The only problem is that, they have to wait for something to happen for them to get into the portal. So they'll have to either wait till the spring portion or something they'll have to have a hardship case to get into the portal. But yeah, I think they're both gone. I mean, look, you've got Julian Sion, you've got Aaron Noland, you've got Will Howard. If they want to play, they're going to have to leave. But thank you again for the super chat. That was very generous. Wayne. I appreciate that.
I know Wayne had a question a little bit earlier too. I think we answered it, but I had marked it. So hopefully we got to that one earlier, Wayne. If not, put that question up again as well.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll go back up here real quick. And there was a question. When ATSC 3.0 becomes fully deployed, do you think Florida State one, Fox Sports 1, and Big Ten Network become broadcast channels, sub-channels?
I think Big Ten Network has been talking about maybe trying to get into a streaming mode as well. So I would maybe be watching for that in the next 3 to 5 years, some talk about that. I think that they're watching what Peacock numbers do in order to decide if it's worth the investment, because that's they actually have equity ownership in that, so that's going to be a considerable investment for the schools if they want to take the Big Ten Network streaming.
Right, and I think Fox Sports 1 is more likely than the Big Ten Network. I think the Big Ten Network,
Fox
Sports 1 could go over the air. It could absolutely go over the air. The Big Ten Network, I think they're going to be a little more reserved. That might end up being a situation where
I don't think
it goes on a streamer like on Hulu or Peacock, some over-the-top model.
Yeah, I could see a partnership like that too.
Jay Baller, Kansas is for sure upgraded in football. Renovation of stadium, $450 million just for phase 1.
Yeah, that's serious. I mean, they're very serious there.
Don't think the SEC takes both UNC and North Carolina State and UVA for VT combos. Think in that case they just take the 2 North Carolina schools. It's a very real possibility. Very real possibility.
It's going to take some kind of pressure to get that North Carolina board to relent from what they're saying they want to do. And that's possible. I mean, see what Florida State does. And if maybe Miami talks about it. And if some things happen, they might say, okay, we're fine. And so if they were to let North Carolina leave like that, I think the Big Ten, that becomes a situation where the Big Ten might jump in. So that's a problem too, is if you allow them to be split, it doesn't necessarily mean the SEC is getting it. Whereas I think the SEC could afford that, maybe even with like a 2/3 pay or something, and then they guarantee they get North Carolina if they're willing to take North Carolina State as well. So that's the thing. You can go for North Carolina, Virginia, but you might not get them. We'll see.
Timothy Green is rooting for the underdog, which is Detroit. So let's go. Like I said, I don't really have a horse in that race. I've got horses on both sides of it. So just whoever wins, for the love of God, just beat Kansas City Chiefs. I know Philip probably doesn't want to hear that Wild Ute because he's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but I'm sick of Patrick Mahomes. I'm sick of Taylor Swift. I'm sick of all of it. Daniel Gygax, I don't have enough time to explain how A's ownership screwed up $500 million in free money in Oakland and $380 million in Nevada is now looking like it might not happen. The A's need a new owner. Hey,
What
Cincinnati
the hell?
Reds fan, I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain. I know what it's like to have shitty ownership.
Yeah, but that's catastrophic. Like, you're stuck in the middle of a move, and whatever they've done, they've lost $880 million in investment. That's bad. I mean, that's the league needs to step in on that, because you're talking about a historic team, that they might just become non-existent if that goes through like that. That's crazy.
Sky, will all Big Ten schools go all in on NIL and buy the top players in the nation, or will only some schools do this? I think only some schools. Only the top of the top.
I think it's going to end up being a little less drastic than what's being talked about. And I think more will be able to do it than we think. The problem, and that we're starting to see, is that a bunch of schools are going to choose to drop other sports in order to do it. And that's, in my opinion, that's that harsh truth that comes with this whole movement, is that a whole bunch of student athletes are going to lose their scholarships. So I think everyone's going to try to compete in football as much as they can.
Cleveland Rocks wanted to thank Jim F. for the advice on Starlink. The only thing I would also add in there, you got to make sure that you're free of any blockage on Starlink. So if you're in a heavily wooded area, can't do that. The North Carolina people are saying take two or take nothing. They may get nothing. You're right. They may get nothing. That's a calculated risk that they've taken.
But I think I think that's a play at the SEC. Like I said, it's all directed at the SEC. If you want North Carolina, take North Carolina State now. Otherwise, when the Big Ten comes calling in the future, if things are bad enough to where we let them go separate, we might just let them go to the Big Ten, because now that also then forces the SEC to look at North Carolina State more differently. So I think they're pushing the SEC to take all four.
If the Big and SEC go to 24, will they go back to divisions? I go pods. I call them pods, but I think the same thing.
If they're in the NCAA as it stands now, they're going to have to figure out something. I think that part of going to the autonomous conferences system, where they have full or near full governance, is so that they can start passing these rules that, quite frankly, should have been allowed a long time ago. It's the rest of the NCAA playing hardball with them, not allowing these changes, saying, "Oh, it's for the good of the kids." No, it's not. So if they get that governance, they're going to change those rules. They're going to change the division rules so they can have more than two. They're going to change the conference postseason rules so they can have more than just a championship game. There's a lot they're going to change. And yes, I think once that happens, then they very quickly go back to the divisions.
Purple Orca. I'm still trying to figure out his profile picture. Is that just an orca with a necktie, or is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a anime orca with a necktie.
Okay. Good deal. I didn't know sometimes orcas eat whales' tongues. I didn't know if it was carrying a whale's tongue around. Kansas City.
Like an orca with a whale's fin up on top, or at the shark's fin.
A dorsal fin.
Yeah, it's got a sharper fin. Like, I know they have their own, but it's a little bit more rounded. But it looks kind of like a shark.
You'll have to explain that profile picture one day. But thank you for the question. Yes, Kansas City loves playing the heel. Orcas are the assholes of the ocean, people. If you haven't read up on orcas, read up on orcas. If reincarnation is real, I want to be reincarnated as an orca because they just go around and they're just the biggest assholes in the ocean. MLB goes to Vegas, then the minor league team that is currently in Vegas would move to Henderson.
Gotcha.
So that,
yeah, Henderson wants to play a part.
well, I don't feel so bad as a Reds fan now. Purple Orc is a Pirates fan. You did answer my previous question. Thanks, and sorry
Gotcha.
for the super chat typo. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
We don't care.
As long as we understand what you're going with, that's fine. Doesn't
Yep.
matter.
Yes, everyone, we got 56 people watching. If you would, please like and subscribe if you have not done so already. It's free, cost you nothing, helps us out tremendously. Immaculate, interesting note. Ivy League signed a 10-year deal for all games to be on ESPN Plus in 2018. Makes sense for the IVCC
I
to
did
be
not know
folded
this.
into that.
Yeah, I was telling Sergeant, I have to connect on the side here. I kind of want to see where he got this information so I can look more into it.
Well, Pickles, I think he might have an assignment for you. You might have to come up with a schedule for the IVCC.
Let's do it. We got to figure out who the hell's going to be in it first, though.
Daniel Gygax with an update,
Good
34-24, 49ers are up.
Just give up now, Lions. That's insane.
How many unanswered points is that?
I think it's 34.
No, there was 24-7 at the half.
Okay, so 27.
27. That's on par with 28-3.
That's
I'm telling you, Lions, if you
silly.
don't, yeah. Matt Ryan's never going to live that one down.
Yep.
Off topic, but I read that the White Sox are going to a new stadium right around 2030, closer to downtown Chicago. That's interesting.
I mean, it's coming not that far from Chicago growing up. That hearing that, it's kind of like, okay, so the White Sox are trying to go a little white collar because generally the white collar all goes
Cubs.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that was like going to be like their third stadium now.
Look at this. Over 1,100 events streamed, including all football, men's basketball, and women's basketball games. He's talking about the Ivy ESPN Plus deal.
You're going to start to build that up and get people looking at them and paying attention to them.
Timothy Green, I have been a Cincinnati Reds fan since I was a small child, and I'm now 59 years old, and I would like to see them win another World Series, for God's sake. So would I, brother. At this point, bring back Marge Schott. Reanimate her and put her in there and see if they can do something, because, my God, I think ever since they brought Ken Griffey Jr. back, that's been a curse that's been put on that team. Just get rid of conference championships when all these conferences are 24 teams. I think they're not going to do anything that's going to get rid of money.
Yeah, those games have been paying the Big Ten $20 million a piece, and that price was determined back in BCS days. So when they get that all figured out, I think that they're waiting to renegotiate that when they have their expansion of the conference postseason. And when that happens, that game is probably worth more like $100 million or more for that one game, especially if they have a tournament leading into it. So you might be looking at a conference postseason for them that's worth, dare I say, $200 million, $250, and that's just going to the conference, and that mix that up with everything else. It might even be a lot more than that. We'll see. But in terms of getting rid of anything that is just the conferences, I definitely don't see that. That's just kind of not how the Big Ten rolls. They're not giving that up. They're doing everything now with the 12 team, for buys for conference champion. They're trying to make them worth more, not less, in my estimation. We'll see.
Purple Orca answered our question. It's an orca in a suit from an anime called My Hero Academia. Okay, now we know. Gotcha. Tough Tony's here. Tony Lawson, you're saying Marge Schott was not a fantastic owner. She was a shit human being, but I mean, her baseball teams won. I mean, just like Jim Harbaugh, shit human being, but the football team won. How many teams would have to leave the ACC before 2027 for ESPN to not renew the ACC deal until 2036? That's a great question.
0.
I think they could get away with one. If they're keeping North Carolina.
No, he's saying how many teams would have to leave before ESPN to not renew it. I'm saying regardless.
Okay. Okay. I
0.
got you.
0 have to leave. Like, they are not going to do it. I don't think Stanford, Cal, and SMU changed that. So if this was already determined previously, if anything, Stanford, Cal, and SMU make them want to get out of that even more, because they're going to have to show them by contract at least 1 or 2 of their games each. ESPN is just like, no, let's go.
Caden's dad, very possible SEC tells both state governments, that's going to be Virginia and North Carolina, to pound stand and stay at 16 until the states relent. With recent hires, obvious that UNC wants SEC easier for their basketball team to win in the SEC.
I think that they want UNC in the SEC because it means North Carolina State goes with them. To most of that, the people who have taken over there, they're NC State people. They don't give a shit about UNC and getting UNC in the right place. They care about North Carolina State. If it comes down and the SEC does not relent on that, then I could see them later on down the road letting UNC go to the Big Ten, because now you're basically saying to the SEC, well, now you have to take North Carolina State if you want in the state, and that's it. So, like I said, I think you're right in that they are focused on the SEC, but it's for North Carolina State more so than it's for North Carolina, because those are the folks that are getting into power.
See, movie time blues. If PATC is correct, he probably is. Then the ACC would get cut off from the state of Florida. That would be devastating for them. Hey, I know a university in South Florida that would probably jump at the chance to join the ACC.
Yeah. I don't see the ACC being able to maintain by backfilling with the AAC schools. I know there's some South Florida fans that are like, hey, we could fill that up, and that's great. But for me personally, I think South Florida eventually will be a Big 12 school, especially if Miami is going to the Big 10. I'd want that UCF-USF rivalry, 2 spots in the state of Florida. So I don't see AAC expansion at large like that to be helpful for the ACC.
Jose, I don't see ESPN renewing. They allow AACC go to open market in 2025. Then if Amazon CW makes offer, ESPN comes back and lowballs the ACC. Potential possibility there, adding new partners.
I think that we heard Disney and ESPN talking about selling off parts, doing some different moves, and then they started to get people talking to them. And 2 of the main names that were there and talking to them were Apple and Amazon. Since then, we've seen Amazon make a deal with Diamond Bally's. So that kind of tells me they didn't get the deal with Disney, ESPN. And then they moved on. I haven't seen anything else with Apple. I think Apple and ESPN Disney may have some type of a deal in principle for the future. And so we'll see how that actually shows itself and manifests. But I think ESPN is at least partially out of the business with the ACC.
Sergeant Pickles, I did the math. Pods actually aren't the best for travel in a 2014, but did you do it as a 4 team-based pod, 6 of them? I'd be interested in knowing if you did that or if you did 6 team, 4 divisions. Let me know on that, Pickles. You can let me know in the DM on Twitter as well, or X. Tony Lawson, doesn't the big O Fox $40 million because Warren gave NBC the championship game?
They'll make some type of a dealing there.
I think you already have.
And I think that NBC, whenever Notre Dame maybe comes and joins us, I think they've made some type. We'll just say that it's probably already been worked out. $40 million isn't enough to drop the conference championship game.
Jay Baller lets us know Detroit is cooked 34-24 with 1 minute left in the game. So looks like Detroit pulled an Atlanta Falcons and surrendered. That's an even bigger comeback than that. That was 28-3. Well,
unbelievable. Those poor folks.
I got a friend who's a Detroit Lions fan. I should probably text him and gloat because he's also a Michigan Wolverines fan, and he always shits on.
There was probably Detroit Lions fans that are already starting to buy tickets for like motels or wherever the Super Bowl was going to be, thinking that they were going.
I know this won't happen, but every conference should play the same number of conference games to qualify for CFP. I 100% agree with that, and everybody should be a member of a conference to qualify for CFP.
I get it. Don't think it's going to happen, but I get it.
Does USF have the athletic value of an FSU or a Miami? Nope, but they have location.
That's a really good location too. Tampa Bay. Oof, good place.
They've got location. So if you get locked out of Florida and you need something.
I love them in the Big 12, man. I don't think that there's a whole lot of G5 expansion anymore, but that's one of those singular grabs that for the Big 12, not for anyone else, but for the Big 12, it's great.
ESPN will haul anus in 2027. Yeah, we don't use the word anus enough, I don't think. I don't think. Very good scientific word.
Yeah, factual.
The risk of extricating UNC from NCS is that it opens the path for a Big Ten offer. It's a game of chicken. I agree.
Yeah, he's right. Yep, exactly what we were just talking about. That it's not so easy for the SEC to say no to the four. We'll just go with that for now.
Notre Dame hate is ugly. Yeah, it is.
Does that include when it every time we talk about it, we have to take a drink? Because that's kind of a good hate, right?
Is that what we decided on? Come on,
I don't know.
You're here. What's the new drinking game? We can't use Georgia Tech anymore.
Yeah, we got some new folks who've been showing up. We kind of had some news, supposedly from Greg Flugard tonight, and he's basically saying that Miami is the president's pick, which kind of had made me change my position. I know for sure. Not Moen. Moen's been saying Miami for a while. We'll give him credit for that. But yeah, it's kind of looking like if that's true, then the play would be Florida State, Miami, and it's an attempt to pull Notre Dame. So that's why we're saying maybe Notre Dame is the bad word for now.
Yeah. So we can't blame our crippling alcoholism. We need a crutch for it. So we need to come up with a new game, guys. We can't use Georgia Tech anymore. It doesn't work. That's no longer the magic word. We'll have to come up with something different. If it turns in you have to play 20 games a year to win a natty, it will be more a game of attrition than the actual best teams winning. I don't disagree.
Well, I know I've come up with a theoretical setup for the conference playoffs to a tournament champions, and for the teams that are getting the high-ranking buys, there's no more games than that they currently will have in the 12-team setup. It'd be 16. If you're someone who gets some wins and starts to play your way up, it might get to 17 or maybe 18 if you're really just beating the odds. But it's not getting anywhere to 20. That's a no-go. I'd say 16 is really where they want to be at, but I could see maybe a situation where there's 17.
Numbskull news, Miami to the Big Ten. Yes, if you didn't catch Greg's show earlier this evening, the heavy chalk is now Miami, having the backing of the Ohio State president and some other powerful people in the Big Ten for an addition to the Big Ten. So you could see Florida State and Miami both in the Big Ten.
Yeah, for Miami as a president's pick, they have a very good medical research situation there. Their Miami hospital system, it's part of the Miami University hospital system. That's very big. It's actually considerable. Miami, the city, has become a bit of a tech hub. So if there's some of that involved, if they can start getting into tech research and whatnot, it's good. It's good for the conference. I'm not a fan of their stadium situation, but if all the other positives override that for the presidents, then it's a done deal. Because Florida State's the Fox pick. That's why I definitely think Miami over Clemson. So if it's Miami, and that's the presidents who they want, that's pretty for real.
How about, this is for the drinking game, how about A&M? They're on par with Georgia Tech in outrageous predictions. That's true, but only I think A&M.
Yeah.
Nobody else is buying the A&M.
So you're basically giving it up to Moen to decide how much he's drinking.
Yes. How much everybody's drinking.
That might not be very healthy. Like when it was GT, it was me. Like I was saying it. But
he's more of a moderate, so
yeah, if you give him the control on that, things could get off the rails pretty quickly. Of course, Notre Dame might be that case too.
Morris Simmons, I don't think I've seen you around here before, Morris. I still don't see Miami. Well, they've got something. They've got that je ne sais quoi that the Big Ten presidents apparently can't resist.
Certainly not going to argue against someone who doesn't see the value, because like I said, I was not as big on it as I was on Georgia Tech, but I've learned the hard way of going up against Greg when he says that his sources are telling him something. Yeah. It tends to be pretty good.
And Caden's dad has it figured out. Big presidents want to party in trendy South Beach.
Yep.
They want that cocaine money. They want the cocaine money. New drinking crutch when one asks what's up with Clemson. The only problem with that is we have to promo this Clemson video for like another 10 days.
That's going to be a rough show.
We would have psoriasis of the liver by the time that was all said and done. But Clemson isn't bad.
What if we did Duke? Because some people keep saying, well, now what about Duke? Nah. Didn't sound
We'll
good.
come up with something. We're not going to blame the alcohol on ourselves, guys. Come on.
We have to figure something out.
Numbskull News. If players want to get paid, then shut up about too many games. There you go. So Big Ten wants to double dip in Florida, but not SEC. Makes no sense. I'm telling you what the man said.
Yeah. I mean, they did it in California. There's some reasons. It's just, it's really getting around the stadium. I don't think double dipping in Florida is that bad, because Tallahassee is basically, you could spit and make it across the Georgia border. You could jog and run and make it across the Alabama border. Tallahassee is very close to the rest of the South. So while it is in Florida, forget the actual states and just look on a map and look at where it's located. It gets you into the rest of the South. And Miami is just, southern Florida, which is kind of different from the rest of the South. So it in a weird kind of way, despite the fact that they're both in the state of Florida, it does give you a state of Florida pick and then one that's kind of more of that area of the South pick.
Right. And somebody made a great quote one time, and I'm sorry, I don't know who to attribute it to, but the further south you go in Florida, the more north you get.
Yeah. So the farther south you go in Florida, the more northern you are, or something like that. Because it's so many transplants that it's not really Southern culture once you get down past like Orlando. It's really actually the north. So you got a lot of Big Ten alumni.
Yeah, is Miami trying to move out of Dolphin Stadium? I think that would have to be a prerequisite.
They did, but the plans fell through. They had some plans that they're looking at Tropical Park, which is about, 10, 15 minutes northwest of the campus. It's right where two interstates, highways meet. They were looking at doing that. It kind of fell through. But maybe if they were to join up, maybe the Big Ten and could get some other people in the city to kind of loosen up on that. But they were looking to. It just hasn't really happened yet.
Yeah, I think if they join the Big Ten, or I think there has to be an agreement in place that they build their own stadium. I don't think the Big Ten's going to be very plussed with having them in an NFL stadium that they can't even fill.
Yeah, it's just not good. That's why I always thought it was funny when I heard Miami's Fox's pick. I'm like, no, I don't get it. Miami as a president's pick. If that's the case, then I get that.
The Atlanta market is number 7 and Miami's number 18. I don't disagree with you, and I've been pushing the market size. We've both been pushing the market size of Atlanta, but if the presidents want Miami over Georgia Tech, they're going to get Miami.
Morris, if you're going to push Georgia Tech, you're not going to get an argument from me. I've been pushing that. I'm just saying if I have found the bruises to show for it that when Greg comes out and says, I have sources that told me this, it's pretty solid. Plus, it's not actually the first to say that. So kind of had to relent. But I do think Georgia Tech is a great pick for the Big Ten. And as we were saying earlier, you might not have been here. Even Moen still thinks that they'll get picked up by the Big Ten at some point.
Eventually. They'll get in eventually, but they're not going to get in on this go around. Florida State does not like SEC or ESPN. They have a wink third-party agreement with the big, or this lawsuit would never have happened. They've got a landing spot regardless. They're a big enough brand where they could have unilaterally went out there and did what they did.
I still agree, though. I don't think you go to all this trouble unless you know you got somewhere to go. Like that is such a huge risk. As these are people who have jobs and positions, and if they go out on the limb like this and it all falls through on them, you're not just your job there is out, but your career line might be up. I mean, that's one of those type of decisions that really messes you up in the future. So I think they know. They know for sure.
Timothy Green has a suggestion. If you want West Virginia or great moonshine making, you could use West Virginia as your drinking game. But we really don't think West Virginia is going to move anywhere.
They're bringing everyone to them this time.
Yeah, they're going to bring partners to West Virginia. Greg mentioned 2 presidents, Wisconsin and Michigan. He also mentioned Ohio State. And those 3 presidents have an incredible amount of pull.
I dare say another one, and that's Penn State.
Yeah.
And
Penn
that gets
State
you
probably wants,
that gets you your Eastern Bloc of Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers votes. Michigan gets you Michigan State, the Indianas. And if Wisconsin in it, then you got Minnesota, you got Iowa. Illinois tends to go with Ohio State. Northwestern does Northwestern. So by having Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, it's all covered.
Yeah. If Greg says it, guys, it's probably true.
I got the bruises to show it, man. I tried going up against him a few times and just got mauled. So I tend to take his word pretty strongly these days.
And Miami would be fun. There's going to be some rivalries there to be had, even if we don't add Notre Dame right away. I mean, Penn State, Miami makes sense. Ohio State, Miami makes sense.
Yeah, but don't take that to mean, Morris, that we think Georgia Tech is not valuable to the Big Ten. Not true. Right. Not true at all. It's just, and nothing's coming out of Georgia Tech, which is kind of making me go, why not? Well, maybe this is why. Maybe they're a future pick. We'll see.
Yep, we'll see. Well, we're going to wrap it up here, guys. Do you want to say anything else, Immaculate, before we close off for the night here? It's almost 10 o'clock on the East Coast.
I'm hoping that this pick for Iowa's OC, if anyone didn't catch that at the beginning, Tim Lester, maybe some of you have seen him before, was hired as the Iowa's offensive coordinator. So we'll see. With the defense coming back, really kind of hoping this offense can just at least be mediocre. As far as that, keep an eye on some of this NCAA news. That once that breaks loose, a lot of our realignment talk is also going to break loose. So keep watching on that as well.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say, since we don't have an official, we'll just take a drink for drink's sake. And I'll look at a few more comments here. I want to thank everybody for the super chats, the likes, the subscribers tonight, the members. You guys did awesome questions. Again, we couldn't do this show without you. You are the third co-host, so to speak, here on the show. So we appreciate you guys so much for coming out and asking these good questions. I'm going to do some speed running here.
Could you do one more, that Edward Weiner one that I just set up for you? That's a
Yeah. Yep.
That's a really good question right there. I think we should. Is a 16-team CFP a possibility in the future? Maybe 9 to 16 play first weekend, then winners play 5 to 8 the following weekend. Winners play 1 to 4 third weekend, semis New Year's Day. I don't know. What do you think about it? I got thoughts on that. What do you think about that, real quick?
I think you're still going to need buys. I think 12 team is honestly, I was prefer the 8-team method. And that's when we had 5A5 with 6 conference winners and 2 at-larges getting in, but I just don't know that I see 16. I don't.
Yeah, I've been looking at this a lot, trying to figure out a number that's above 12 that works out well, but also, maintains the emphasis that they're trying to put on their conference champions. And I just can't find one that's not too big of a growth. I do think 12 right now for these 2 years is it. And I think that they want to do something different in 26. Remember, folks, BCS to CFP changed in 2014. That is now going to be about 10 years old. The BCS was about 10 years old. So they seem to go in these phases towards whatever they're going towards. So don't think it's entirely impossible for the CFP as we know it to disappear and become something else, something we don't really know. I've posited that, like a conference playoff system, which then goes into a tournament of champions, could be it. That's not me. I'm not reporting or saying that I think that's it. I just think it's going to be something very different from what we've had in the past. So I don't see just a small extension of 4 more teams.
All right, let's speed run some of these. Yeah. Pitt needs to be in the same conference as WVU.
Agreed.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So when WVU is mentioned, you have to drink an entire beer. I'm a whiskey man myself. I don't really drink beer. Miami football on Northwestern level. Don't insult Northwestern like that.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Damn, that's just brutal. Northwestern can at least get 2/3 of their stadium full.
If Miami does not make a move soon, they may get left behind. They may.
Yeah, I think
we'll see. I think they're just happy to be considered. They're one of those people that aren't going to win the Oscar, but they're just happy to be mentioned. Immaculate is in the bargaining stages of his Georgia Tech arc. That's true.
Yeah, I'm having to backtrack a little bit.
I hope after we go to 20 that we take a break and let things settle for a while. Thank you, Movie Time Blues. I think that's the case.
Agreed.
Mo and I will get back to you on the pod travel distances. Sounds good. Okay. Appreciate it. Just hit me up in that Twitter DM. So many great teams in a 20-team so many great games in a 20-team Big Ten. I wouldn't even care if Notre Dame ever joined or not anymore. I don't disagree with you. I think you add Florida State and Miami, those 2 brands. If they can get, especially Miami, can get their stuff back up, I mean, they would certainly be a fun one.
Yeah, no one ever really thought Florida State is an option. So when Notre Dame historically has been like the number 1 option, no one really was fathoming Florida State. If you can get that brand in there and then you pair it with Miami, and like you're saying, you added some of the other ones that already come in, God, it's pretty unimaginable how quickly this has come about.
Purple Orca agrees. 8 keeps conference championships to be relevant. The 8-team playoff.
Could be.
Minnesota Seminoles posits 4 conferences, 2 teams per conference. For an 8-team playoff. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Wayne Gerbach, again, Wayne, thank you for the generous super chat this evening. Appreciate that. Lester should be a solid hire and will likely push Ferentz without asking him to change his philosophy.
I mean, he's the guy now, so I hope he's successful. I hope it's great, and I hope my initial analysis of it was wrong. That was just based upon the resumes. But, Ferentz was the one that interviewed him and looked into him deeper. So that's his pick.
We'll end this on Timothy Green. I would like to see rivalry games across the board in college football like it used to be. Can we make it happen? We can.
Yes.
You can have both. You
We
can have
will.
everything. They're not
We will.
mutually exclusive. Iowa's going to play Iowa State. Ohio State's going to play a small in-state school to help their athletic budget for the year. We can get Pittsburgh and West Virginia in the same conference to play the backyard brawl every year. Yeah, this is all possible, guys. Everything's possible when you imagineer it.
Especially if we
So-
get back to like divisions, and if they lead into something, those games will suddenly matter so much more again. I'm a little worried without divisions that only a few teams' games are going to matter as much, but we'll get back to divisions and we'll get those rivalry games meaning more again.
Yep. Well, with that, we will sign off here. We will see you guys on Tuesday for the Big 12 Mafia show. Until then, keep an eye on us on Twitter in case something breaks. We might have to jump on here. You never know.
True.
With that, Miami, 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 Miami.